In this video, we'll be talking about vertical angles and equations. Vertical angles are two angles opposite from each other and they're congruent to each other. So when two lines cross in a point, they create four angles. The opposite from each other are exact same measure. Vertical or vertically opposite. So opposite angles have the same exact measure. So let's say if this one is 80 degrees, this one is 80 degrees. On the opposite side, the obtuse angles here should each be 100 degrees. Why? Because adjacent angles on the straight line are 180 degrees. So if I look this way, 80 plus 100 is 180 on a straight line, or this way we have 180 degrees. So if one angle is 80, the other one has to be 100 to supplement the difference. So vertical angles are opposite and congruent. When two lines cross, 100, 100, opposite from each other and congruent, equal to each other. If I have to solve for x in the example right here, the x is the angle and across 50 have to be congruent to each other. So if I look at my angle x and I have to solve for x, it means my x value is 50. Why 50? Because the two opposite angles are congruent to each other. They are vertical. What if I have to solve for angle B? So here's the question. How much or how many degrees is B? I need to know how many degrees A is. If angle A measures 37 degrees, what is the measure of angle B? 37 and B are congruent to each other because they are vertical, so they both have to be 37 degrees. To write an equation, we say angle B is same as A, which is 37 degrees. Let's complicate things a little bit. Using the concept that vertical angles are across from each other and congruent to each other, I have an expression now for one side, 5x minus 6, an expression for the angle on the other side, which is vertical, congruent, same, 3x plus 12. If two vertical angles are congruent to each other, the equation will be 5x minus 6. The expression given on one side is equal to 3x plus 12. The expression on the other side, because vertical angles are congruent to each other, I can set up an equation showing that they're equal to each other. And then to solve an equation for x, I have variables on both sides, so I'm going to leave my 5x here and bring over minus 3x. Then I'll have the constant 12, and then I'll bring over minus 6 using inverse operation, plus 6. 5x minus 3x. Combine the like terms, 2x, 12 plus 6, 18, and then I divide by 2 to solve for x, which is going to be 9. So the x value in this equation is 9, but that's not the angle measure. So if the problem just says solve for x, x equals 9. However, if the question asks how many degrees is each angle, we need to substitute the x value, 9. So let's say from here, I'm going to say 5 times, instead of x, I put 9 minus 6. 5 times 9 is 45 minus 6, and then subtract 39. So that would be 39 degrees. Let's see if 39 degrees will be on the other side as well. So if I substitute 3 instead of x, 9 plus 12, 3 times 9, 27. We multiply first and then add 12. Once we add them, we have 39. So I have 39 degrees on one side and 39 degrees on the other, which is absolutely true because vertical angles are opposite from each other and they are congruent to each other. So if the problem says solve for x, x value is 9. If the problem says find the measure of the angles are vertical, they have to be the same. So if you substitute the value of x, you solve and you should get the same exact number on both sides. Vertical angles are opposite and congruent to each other. Now let's see a few more examples using this concept. We have left side for me to explain, right side for you to try. Okay, so in the directions for each problem we're going to set up an equation and then solve for the missing variable x, or question mark in this instance right here. We can label it x, and then we'll see which what is the measure of each angle as well. So for the first equation, very simple. 92 on one side, opposite must be 92 as well, because vertical angles are congruent, and we can write the equation that 92 equals x, or x equals 92 degrees. Adding steps. I have an angle on this side 66 degrees and I have an angle on this side given as an expression. However, they are exactly the same measure, so I can put the equal sign between the two expressions and set up an equation. So I have 3t plus 12 and equals to 66. Solving the equation, subtract the 12, 66, excuse me, minus 12, 54, divide by 3, and we have the t value of 18. If the problem just asks solve for the variable, that would be t equals 18. If the problem says find angle, this angle has to be 66 as well, because they are congruent to each other, because they're vertical. So to make sure that we had the problem solved correctly, this 66 degrees will show up if I substitute in this expression, instead of t, 18. So that'll be 3 times 18 plus 12. 3 times 18, we have 54. And then 54 plus 12, we have 66. So this value of the expression is 66 degrees as well. What that tells us is that we solved for t correctly. T is 18, and if we substitute t in the expression, 3t plus 12, use the order of operation, we get 66 degrees, which is congruent to the angle on the opposite side. Vertical angles are congruent. So I have two angles in the next expression, 2x plus 6 and 96. Those two are congruent to each other by definition. Vertical angles create an intersection of two lines. When two lines cross, they create vertical angles. They're across from each other and they are congruent to each other. So I can write 2x plus 6 on one side equals 96 on the other, and solve the equation for x. Subtract 6, 90 divide by 2, and that would be x value of 45 degrees. So the x value is 45, not the angle. The x value is part of the expression, and if I substitute in this expression, so instead of x I put 45, 2 times 45 plus 6. 2 times 45 is 90, 90 plus 6 is 96. So this angle right here, 96, is the same as the angle across 96, which tells me that I solved for x correctly, because if I substitute the x in the original expression, I have 96 on both sides, which creates vertical angles. So in the next example, if I have the two intersecting lines create 4 angles. The ones across from each other are called vertical. They are congruent and they're same exact size. Same exact size means equal, so I can write one expression, x plus 16, on one side, and it is equal to the one across, 4x minus 5. Vertical angles are opposite from each other and congruent to each other. And we solve this equation. So I have x value, bring over the 4x, cross the line, change the sign, minus 4x. For the constants I have negative 5. Then plus 16 will be inversed on the other side, minus 16 using inverse operations. 1x minus 4x. Combine the like terms, negative 3x equals negative 21, same sign. Add the numbers, keep the sign. Divide by negative 3, next step, in order to get that x alone, and the value of x is 7. Again, the value of x is 7. That's not the angle measure. That is just the variable. Now what we do is we substitute the variable in each expression. So in here I have x plus 16. Instead of x I put 7 plus 16. 7 plus 16, adding together 23 degrees. So that would be the angle measure. If I substitute x 7, that will be the 4 times 7 minus 5, and use the order of operations, I must get 23 degrees. So let's see here, 4 times 7, 28, minus 5, 23. So that means we had everything solved and found correctly, because we have these two opposite angles from the intersection. They are called vertical, and vertical angles have to be congruent. They must have the exact same measure. So what you do on the right hand side, you set up the equations and solve for each x value and find the angle measures of this vertical angle relationship using the examples on the left. We'll check your answers in class.